Welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. Are you stuck in the corporate rat race, worrying about layoffs, and longing to take control of your destiny? This is the place for frustrated executives like you who want to escape the grind, live life on your own terms, and build wealth. Whether you're ready to make a full transition into franchise ownership or want to start building a side business along your corporate job, Pete guides you every step of the way. He'll talk about how to create career and income security, diversify your assets and income, and live life on your own terms. Your path to controlling your own destiny starts now.
Welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. My name is Pete Gilfillan. I'm an entrepreneur, the best-selling author of the book Hire Yourself, a nationally recognized franchise consultant, and a proud corporate escapee. I am super pumped up about today's podcast because I have a very special guest. I'd like to welcome Zach Tanner. He is the owner and the founder of Painter Bros. Welcome, Zach.
Thanks for having me on, Pete. It's nice to see you again, and I'm excited to chat.
Oh, awesome. Well, I've been looking forward to this conversation because you have a great story. And I thought I would get us going with kind of your story of how you became an entrepreneur. So tell me a little bit about your background, how you found yourself being an entrepreneur.
I guess it all started when I was in fifth grade and I wanted an iPod Nano. I went around and knocked on doors to mow lawns until I got enough people to sign up on a weekly recurring cycle for a summer. And I guess that was my first official business move. That was small scale, entrepreneurial spirit. My whole family's entrepreneurs.
Sure.
And I guess transitioning from high school into being an adult, if you will, I was originally going to go play football in college.
Wow.
I was a quarterback. I did okay. I had some recruiters wanted me to come play, and then I got hurt my end of my junior year, right in between my senior year.
Okay.
And so those scholarship opportunities turned into walk-on opportunities. And I didn't go to school to learn. I went to school to play sports. I enjoyed the wrestling and the football. I did some track. And so I got hurt and those went away. I honestly, I had surgery on my ankle. I moved out here to Utah, and I think I spent a day just pen and pad. And I was like, I wonder how much money I could make if I just did something on my own instead of, how much money does it cost to go to school? How much time is it going to take out of my life? By the time I'm done with college, how much could I have made? What could I have built? And that's really kind of what kicked it off.
So what was the business, you wrote down on the notepad? What business did you come up with?
Well, it's kind of funny. So my uncle, Conrad Kolba, and Scott and Chad Jones, 5-Star Franchising group.
Yep.
I actually worked with those guys in Utah when I was 17.
Wow.
18. I maybe just turned 18. I was trying to drop out of high school. My mom was like, please finish. It'll pay off someday. And so I was like, all right, mom, whatever. So I was working full time, going to high school to finish my degree or whatever. And I ran a retractable screen door franchise called Screensavers for Chad Jones. And that was kind of my first taste to time is money. And he would do this thing for me. He would take me into the shop, and he had a stopwatch, and he'd say, all right, I'm going to pay you, I think it was like $15 per build for these screens. He'd say, the sooner you get it done, the more money you make. And so I was like, oh, I'm good at that, sports. And so that was my first kind of turn on to the harder I work, the more money I can make, and I control it.
Wow, that's great. And you would mention you came from an entrepreneur family, so it became natural for you to just kind of take the path of being an entrepreneur. So it sounds like you got involved with the team or the organization 5-Star, which they've got multiple different franchise concepts. So let's kind of fast forward now. You are the founder and certainly the owner of Painter Bros. So how did you come up with the idea to launch Painter Bros as a business, as a franchise?
After Screensavers, because that was more of like a gig work, like weekend, evening kind of thing. I needed some more consistent work. So right before Five Star sold Five Star Painting to Dwyer Group, I plugged in and worked with them for about a year. And I learned how to paint. I learned some of the systems. And like any 18-year-old kid does, they think I could do this way better. I obviously know everything. I could franchise this on my own. And so that was kind of the kicker. They sold that, and I was on my own, and I said, I got $400. I spent $10. Everyone asked me the domain name Painter Bros. What's the reason for it? Is it your brother? And I was like, no, I had $10, and it was the only domain that had the word painter in it and somewhat described me. And so
That's
I had
great.
$10 on the domain. I built a little Wix website that looked terrible, and I spent the rest on marketing.
That's awesome. So you started building the business, right? And then you built it up to a size where ultimately you wanted to franchise it. So when did you start franchising Painter Bros?
Um, so I guess I graduated high school in 2012. I started Painter Bros in 2014, 15, right around 14, I think it was. And I think we sold our first franchise in 2016 or 17. And I think I sold three, just word of mouth, just in the Salt Lake area.
Sure.
Because of course I was so ready to sell franchises being, 20, whatever years old. And it didn't, some things went really well, some things didn't. And so it turned into me just scrapping it for a few years.
Okay.
I didn't have the premier value I thought I had. We had revenue opportunities, so some guys were doing pretty well. But I had zero control on the tech side of what was actually going on and managing KPIs or anything like that.
So it sounds like you kind of just stopped
Yep.
franchising for a period of time, froze it to build up that kind of the infrastructure, the value proposition for the franchisees. And I think also what I think you heard you say is technology. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. One of the hardest things in the service industry is building a business, not building a sole proprietorship. So one thing I recognized pretty early on is it is extremely difficult to work yourself out of the day-to-day equation unless you have enough margin with your jobs to justify it. And your margin is eaten up in the beginning by marketing spend
Yep.
with local market. And so I built a tech platform, and we pioneered a KPI called cost per customer acquisition. And it ties directly to the origination of the lead. So whether it's Google, Angie's List, Thumbtack, Pinterest, you name it, you spend money on those things. What does that actually give you as far as customer dollars? And so as I was building that and analyzing the data, I was like, 20%, 25% cost per customer acquisition. That's why it's a sole proprietorship. And so I didn't have a quick solution for, fixing the residential side, but I knew that I could expand commercial, and commercial doesn't cost me marketing dollars. It's relationship based.
Got it. So you changed the game a little bit. All right. So you got back into franchise. You built that infrastructure kind of with a focus on commercial jobs because there was more margin because you didn't have as much cost of acquisition, what I think I heard you say. So how many franchisees do you have now?
We have 43 now. We just started, so we started franchising again. It was like 2 years ago, two years, maybe a little bit more than 2 years ago, tops, where we actually got back into the game, started going to some conferences, and we sold a lot right out of the gate. I think we sold 10 in like the first few months. And so I just paused it and I said, let's make sure we got this right. So actually, I did what most founders don't do, and I froze it for like 3 months. I don't know if you remember that or if we were
Yeah,
signed up
I
with the
do.
group at that time, but I just would rather make sure we were set up before we really ran at it.
Yeah. So there's lots of different painting franchises out there. So the real question of the day is what makes Painter Bros different from other painting franchises? I mean, there's a lot of them out there. What makes you guys so special?
I think culture. We're not a salesy culture or salesy group. We're relationship based. at our core, we're long-term relationship based. And so when I do my founders calls and I vet people, I coach them on that. And I say, hey, we're here together for the next 10 or 20 years. And every customer that you interact with, you need to have the same mentality. And that's how you build that almost reoccurring revenue stream, just based off of your personality, how you interact with people, how you treat people. And so we apply that to every aspect of the business. Who we hire, we take care of our people. We treat them like they're our own. Our customers, they're our people. We treat them like they're our own. And yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
gist of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So culture is what separates you from everybody else. So as you're looking for franchisees, what characteristics are you looking for in those franchisees?
We've had a lot of success with individuals who worked at a corporate level, B2B, on some level, interacting with other companies, whether it's services, products. So they kind of understand that relationship balance and dynamic, and the way things are done at that level. And they either feel under appreciated, underpaid, kind of boxed in, just tired of the same thing over and over again. Like, my cap is this, but I'm making someone else that. And so I say, I meet with everyone I'm candid with, and I say, here's what I can offer you. Here's what your skills are. If you think this is a good match, let's do it. And so I kind of show them what's behind the curtains, how to acquire bigger customers, how to maintain those bigger customers, and how to, knock it out of the park, essentially.
So what I heard you say is you're not looking for a bunch of painters to make franchisees. What you're looking for is corporate executives that have the ability to connect with others, more specifically kind of business people, and to foster that culture. And they're wanting more than a set salary. They want to build something where they have complete control of their income, control of their culture, their organization from the standpoint. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, I need people that know more than me about I know about this half, and I need people to know about the other half, that we can meet in the middle and apply both of our skill sets and build something cool.
Yeah, what is that phrase where a good leader will surround themselves with people that are smarter than they are? I think it's Richard Branson that says that.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I feel
right.
like the dumbest person half the time in the room.
Well, I mean, you're smart. You built something incredible. So let me ask you this: from a standpoint of this business, somebody's thinking about become an entrepreneur, right? So I'm a corporate executive. I'm frustrated. What would be some advice you would give somebody that's considering leaving the corporate world to become an entrepreneur?
Um, you're the only one that's going to get in your way. At the end of the day, you're the only one that's going to limit your imagination of what you think you can do. You're the only one that's going to tell yourself how hard it's going to be. And so, yeah, I would say you're going to get in your own way, and the second that you can get through that, the world kind of opens up.
Yeah, right. It's kind of getting past all those, it's having that mindset that, hey, listen, it's mine, it's 100% accountability, and I just got to work through anything. I think one of the biggest problems we have in today's world is that everybody blames problems on others, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and as an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter where the problem comes from. Bottom line is we got to solve that problem,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what I'm hearing you say is sometimes the problem is inside of us, our internal beliefs and stuff like that. Okay, excellent. And then if somebody was going to become an entrepreneur, what would be a great book? If you could only give an entrepreneur one book, right? What would that book be?
Well, I've actually only read one book outside of contractors licensing, code, business law, like, the stuff. I'm licensed nationwide, and so I have to read all that crap. But the one book I read when I was 18 years old that I actually based the growth off of is called The E-Myth. And I highly recommend everyone that signs up with my organization, I tell them that's a must read. It's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, E-Myth Revisited is one of my favorite books. In
Yep.
fact, every candidate that I place, I send them a copy of that book because
Yep.
it is perfect. I mean, there's some great stories in there, and it is awesome. Another great book that a lot of people are leveraging now as they become entrepreneurs is a book called Traction. And Traction is about business operating systems, and you're actually seeing the methodology EOS basically adopted from large companies to smaller businesses, so franchises. And so, highly, I recommend that book if you ever get a chance to read a second book at all your spare time from a standpoint. So,
Yeah.
let me ask you this. What would you say separates a good entrepreneur from an exceptional entrepreneur? What kind of takes somebody to that next level as an entrepreneur?
Faith,
Faith?
the ability to believe in something you can't see. It's believing in yourself. Like, just because you can't see $10 million doesn't mean it's not there for you to go get. And it sounds kind of silly, because it's a basic fundamental thing, but I really believe that.
Yeah. I was watching the movie Santa Claus, right, yesterday, and they talked a little bit about, this idea is that if you can't, if even if you can't see it, it doesn't make it not true, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. You just put a different spin on it. So, very good. Are there any business leaders that you follow? Is there anybody that's kind of inspires you?
And I feel like my head's so down all the time, just working like one foot in front of the other. Um, I would say there's a consultant I had a really good conversation with, Mike Welsh. He's a consultant that I got a good relationship with. He said some inspirational things to me early on. Jeff Duden, I have a lot of good conversations with him. He's a really solid dude. There's probably been so many people that have said just the right things at the right times for me to digest wherever I'm at in life and understand something specific. So uh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So when you need something, it appears for you, and I think that's very cool. All right.
Yeah.
Any other advice you would give somebody that, hey, I'm frustrated in the corporate job, I'm capped at what I can make, I'm in this rat race, all this kind of stuff. Maybe I'm in my 50s and I'm frustrated. Any other advice you'd give to somebody considering leaving that rat race to become a franchise owner or an entrepreneur?
Um, yeah, I think you shouldn't sit in that stagnant limbo position of having that internal battle for too long. You're in control of yourself, and walking away from what you think is maybe not the right fit or frustration into a little bit of a calculated unknown can be a big step. But again, you control what you do, and you make your own decisions, and that's the first step, is just making that first big choice.
Yeah, and a lot of times people look at a corporate job as security, and there's nothing further from the truth in today's world, right? You're one spreadsheet away from being laid off, right?
Right.
And especially as we get older. And so if you can, to your point, make a calculated decision to become an entrepreneur, you are in control of your destiny. You're living life on your own terms, you're building wealth. And you know what? In today's world, it's good to be in control of your future because you know what? We're going to go through some times here, and if you have more control, I think you're in a much better place.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Well, Zach, you built an amazing company with Painter Bros, and I
Thank
thank you for everything you shared with the great insight. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It's always good to chat. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, and I appreciate you being here. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us on the Hire Yourself podcast. Pete's here to help you break free from the corporate rat race, take control of your destiny, and finally live life on your own terms. Whether that's jumping into franchise ownership full-time or starting it as a side hustle. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, share it with a fellow frustrated executive, and leave a review to let us know your thoughts. Ready to start building your bridge to freedom? Visit hireyourself.com for resources, insights, and a clear path forward. Until next time, take charge, build your future, and live life on your own terms.